Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Roundtable. You're no doubt coming off watching a nail-biter of a women's national team soccer game in which they went into extra time. Trinity Rodman, the progeny of young U.S. diplomat Dennis Rodman, made the goal. Great. Good on him. Really happy that happened. We've got proper football going on. Not to say that that's not international football. It's not proper football, but this is, come at me. We've got questions coming in already. This is your opportunity to ask the crew. We've got Eric and Ian with me today. If there's anything you want to know about practice, which I'm sure you do, please go ahead and hit us up. But this is the first question of the day. Obviously, people are into it, Eric. We've got our first 3 practices in the books. We've got a practice later tonight with a walkthrough today. Can you talk a little bit about coverage? I know you just posted on the board, so the timing couldn't be more perfect for this question, but what's going on with practice?
Yeah, well, they had they made it available to media the first 2 practices, and then it was supposed to be available last night, and they canceled it for whatever reason. I think Ian was lined up to go with Ian in Central Texas now, makes it a lot more convenient. But yeah, they canceled the media availability, but that doesn't matter. We just get people on the phone and get the latest. Either we see it or we hear it, and we report it. So yeah, I just posted an update. We can talk a little bit about it. Team looks good. But yeah, we're going to have practice updates pretty much after every practice.
Ian, as someone that's speaking for myself here, never legally been to a practice, what is that like? Is there a check-in process? Do you have to wear a bucket hat and a hoodie? What is the general vibe when going to one of these practices?
Well, I've only been to ones that have been open to the general public. I've not been to one that are exclusive to media. The public ones were back in the day when they did those were generally pretty enlightening. They would be vanilla. It's not like they would work on all their new secret stuff, but you could watch them do drills for a little bit, and then they would usually have scrimmages that you could, it's real football, even if it was thud tempo. I didn't see a ton of bucket hats. Honestly, that is probably a good call at this time of the year. If you're willing to, if you have no shame.
When you guys are set up at these things, I know I've caught in your writing, Eric, you talk about being on the other side of the field. Obviously, they're just not going to let you roam free. But in terms of reporting, how difficult is that? I mean, are you guys there with binoculars, or how does this work for you?
No, I mean, you can take binoculars, sure. Yeah, if you're watching the offense, it's super easy. Offense and special teams are right there in front of you. But the way Dennis is, there's plenty of field that's off of the actual proper football field that you'll see the linebackers and the edges and the defensive tackles will go do their drill work. It's really drill work and individual stuff, so it's not like we're missing anything. You do get to see them warming up. It's not a deal breaker. But the good thing is we have sources we call. We need to find out what's going on. It's a lot more enlightening than the 20-minute window that we get typically. So yeah, we've got updates right now. Go check it out. Plenty of news about the defensive tackles. Actually, funny you bring that up. It's a hot topic for the entire offseason. Of course, we're going to focus on that quite a bit in August. They look better than they did in the spring, and I think that's even before you factor in bringing in Bill Norton and Jermaine Lole. Everybody's just doing a better job of staying in their gaps. Yesterday was the first practice in pads and shells, so you're able to glean a little bit more once they start going live like that. It was stud tempo. But the defensive linemen were in the right place at the right time.
And for those of you that, again, because I've done a horrible job hosting this show, the site we're talking about is InsideTexas.com, where both Ian and Eric are writing. So please go check that out, InsideTexas.com. Let's go a little bit. Let's stay on practice because this is obviously a hot topic. Is there any reason that you're aware of for some of the time switches that have gone on with practice compared to last year, Eric?
Well, I think they're going, the first couple of days, I think they went at 3 just because it's the hottest point of the day. You don't want to make sure that they're coming into camp healthy and then understanding how demanding it's going to be. But they also put some of those afternoon practices in the bubble just to let them cool off. And, you want to find a nice balance between being able to maximize the practice and also getting ready for the season. I think everybody recalls just how hot it was last year for that Rice game. It was pretty miserable. And then if you factor in, you got to wear pads and all that. But I think at night they're just trying to give them a break, and I think it's good to have night practices under the lights too, so you can get used to that. It's different than being in the sunlight than being under the lights at DKR. I think they're just acclimating to that, and I think they're just getting experience with the whole gamut. At different times, it'll be at in the morning, 9:00 in the morning on Monday. We've seen it at 3 in the afternoon, and we've seen it at 7:00 at night. So they're just mixing and matching it and getting the guys used to all. They're not in charge of what time they play the actual games.
I know you mentioned that the offense is pretty easy to see, also with the special teams. Are you able to see the routes going on, or is it the last thing I saw was pretty close to just being ball control type stuff? Really tight quarters.
For those that don't know, the crisp routes is an old school joke. First on Barking Carnival, and then on Inside Texas, about how every spring you start hearing about guys running crisper routes. They've got striated glutes, just kind of, the standard updates. We try to go a little bit more beyond that. We talked about the wide receivers quite a bit today. Isaiah Bond might be the best route runner. Matthew Golden was mentioned quite a bit as a slot receiver. Silas Bolden, we hear good things about him every practice. Same with Ryan Wingo. I think every single time Ryan Wingo's taken to the field, we've heard something good about him. Just really loaded up wide receiver. Not only can they run good routes, crisp routes, they're all very, very fast. You can see them mixing and matching. DeAndre Moore's not just going to play slot; he'll play outside. Silas Bolden's going to move around a little bit. Matthew Golden, you're going to see him playing inside and outside. So they've got a bevy of riches there. It's going to be tough. I can't wait to see how the coaches manage that room, because wide receivers are tough to manage in the first place. They all want the ball every time. They're going to have to be a little bit. It's going to be like preschool. They're going to have to learn how to share.
One of the names that we're not hearing a lot of is Connor, and he is one of the biggest guys on the team. What are we hearing about him in terms of development? Where is he? What should we expect from him out of this season?
Yeah, well, a lot of times we don't talk much about these offensive linemen, because you need to kind of forget about them. Let them go develop for a couple of years and see what comes out on the other side. Especially, they're not all like Kelvin Banks. Most of them do need time. Connor's a very hard worker. A giant, as you said, he came into the program strong. He's a power lifter in high school, very strong, one of the strongest guys in the program. I haven't heard a whole lot about him as far as expectations for this season, because they have, they've got 4 or 5 guards that could play. They got 4 or 5 guards that could start at most schools. So Stroh's just need a little bit more time to develop, but he's working hard.
So this is a question more for Ian, having spent so much time up in Michigan. I know that you were the resident sign stealer for Inside Texas, but in terms of the Michigan turf, is it turf or real grass? What's going on up there, Ian?
No, they got the pellets. What do you call it? Field turf up
Synthetic.
there. I've been on the field actually after a practice. I went with my kids once and got to let the little ones run around and pretend to score touchdowns. So yeah, the thing about Michigan, an extraordinary number of games that are played in that stadium in the season are played in like 40-degree weather with drizzling rain and a little bit of wind. And it's not obvious when you're watching on television, it doesn't pick up all the little droplets, but maybe they'll cut to the sideline and you realize like all the coaches have windbreakers that are soaking wet. It's kind of an unpleasant place to play, and even to attend games, honestly, for much of the year. Probably none of that is going to apply when Texas is there. So just
what's the weather like in early September there?
Nice.
Yeah, like 75?
Like Rose Bowl type weather. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. Are you going?
I will be there.
All right. Yeah, I'll be there too.
And we are. I'm assuming, Eric, you're sending the entire staff to cover the game. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. That's not correct at all.
Yep,
why so early? It's a big noon kickoff, man. Big noon.
That's all. We're just trying to get things in the morning. Let's talk draft, because that's always a fun thing to chat about. We've talked about this before, this being a contract year for Broughton. But what do you see? I mean, the comp that Jones L is laying out here is a Christian Jones. Where do you feel he is in terms of development, and how does Broughton? I guess the question here is, how does Broughton relate or help rather Baker's recruiting moving forward?
Well, he could help a lot if he wants to have a breakout season. I think that's a pretty apropos comparison. Christian Jones, obviously longer curve developmental guys. Nobody had a longer curve than Christian, and nobody, I think, maximized as well as Christian. So that's a very good example, especially if Broughton breaks out. But Broughton's always had the natural ability. If you go look at his high school tape, he is just a menace. Very big guy that moves extremely well. has not always played with great technique, needs to get a little stronger. But if he keeps getting better each year, and I think he has gotten better the last 2 years, but I'm also extremely biased on that guy. I think he's going to have a good season. It's him and Alfred look to be the starters. So that doesn't seem to be like there's much question about it. That tells you quite a bit because they brought in guys that have played a lot of football. So if Vernon's holding off those guys, Lole, Norton, that's a very good sign for his development. But, I really like what I saw of him in practice the other day. It's just, he seems to be the number one leader in that room. And, if you went and saw practice for the first time, you'd assume that was his room, the way he commands the first reps. He's always at the front of the line for every drill. Looks to me like he's locked in. Marriage will have that effect on you. It kind of tends to focus us. Maybe he's got that same thing going on.
I'll see Broughton and Collins both have been kind of like defensive ends trapped in the bodies of defensive tackles for much of their time at Texas. So and Christian Jones was like a soccer player trapped in a football player's body, I think, or wasn't that Eric, his sport that he had grown up playing more of?
Yep.
So it'd be interesting if the switch flips and they can adjust to playing a little.
Vernon was a basketball player. Everybody thought Vernon was going to, because Vernon's mom was a college basketball coach. Everybody thought Vernon was going to be the next hot shot basketball recruit, and then he quit growing at 6'5", so he ended up kind of short for basketball, but perfect defensive line body. It's funny, Todd Orlando finally got these 4-eye defensive ends right when he got shown the door. It's funny we're still talking about these guys all these years later because of the coming back for fifth years and stuff. But I look, man, I don't know. Haven't been right on Vernon yet. I'm not going to say I've been wrong, but so far I have not been as accurate as I would have thought coming out of high school. But I do think he's going to have a very good year for Texas.
Somebody we know is always having a good year is Laura Baker. Do you guys like that? That was my Justin Wells seamless transition into the ad read. If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Central Texas area, like our young Ian Boyd did, please reach out to Laura Baker. Laura's a UT grad, avid Longhorn fan, and she's a member of the board. That's InsideTexas.com. So she's family. She's also an elite member of the Andy Allen team with Keller Williams Realty. So if you're thinking about making a move Central Texas, like our friend Ian Boyd did, please call her today at 512-784-0505. Again, that number is 512-784-0505. That is my ad read voice. Okay, we've got a big question coming up here. And this has to do with relating the front end to the back end. This is something we've talked about a lot, especially in PK's defense. And without going into too much detail, because this is a two-part question, the question really is, how long do we get to keep using the excuse of maybe these things aren't in alignment? We've had new coaches coming in, and now that we've got hopefully some better cohesion, when does this really need to start clicking? Because again, PK has been here a while. I know he's brought in Patterson. He's brought in some other voices in the room. But when does that excuse of lack of cohesion really start getting into play, especially considering there's not been any turnover really in the secondary coaching unit?
I don't think it's an excuse so much as everyone trying to explain what the confounding variable has been for Texas defense since they hired Pete Kwiatkowski. And after listening to him answer questions in person on the fly, PK is kind of a reserved guy in general. But when he gets asked questions about like the secondary and defensive backs and coverages, a lot of times he's kind of reaching into his mind for a minute. I think he's definitely much more focused on the front. And if you look back at his career, he's almost always worked with somebody that's done a lot on the back. Like Marcel Yates at Boise State, Jimmy Lake at Boise State and Washington. So I think he's really used to having somebody that owns a lot of the vision and like tactics on the back end. And then I think Terry Joseph has generally been more of like a top recruiter, position coach. I don't know if he's been as much of like a coordinator level kind of guy in terms of shaping up the back end. So I think there's just kind of this hole in the overall staffing that was like filled a little bit when Gary Patterson was consulting. Maybe it can be filled naturally with just them learning to work together. Maybe Scotty Hazelton answers that. I don't know. Eric, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, not really. I think, I think it's, we're trying to apply context, not really make an excuse for the staff. That's not our intent anyways. I think this is the year that's got to come together. They've got pass rush. They've got a lot of bodies in the secondary. They've got a lot of speed in the secondary. They've increased the IQ in the secondary. All the guys that were busting last year are gone. So really, there's no excuse for this not to be a good defense, at least when it comes to pass efficiency. And obviously they should get help from the pass rush. So if we don't see it this year, I think RTM Woodworking, we're going to have to probably have some tougher conversations or articles to write. They've got all the pieces, it seems. Is the coaching there? Well, yeah, we'll find out.
Well, this goes along with that question, is in terms of cohesion. And again, you've been very bullish on the secondary, Eric, especially on the intellect side of the game. Do you see more rotation than we've had in the past? Or is this going to be a situation where PK pretty much sticks to his horses, specifically probably at safety? Because, I mean, look, we can't keep Michael Taff off the field. Big Michael Taff fan. But are we going to see some rotation at safety? What is your read on that this early in the game?
Yeah, we saw quite a bit of rotation last year. We'll see it again this year. I think Jelani McDonald's a natural fit for a Keaton Crawford position. He's going to play. Obviously, they got basically 3 starters at safety between Taft, Williams, and Makuba. I'm not sure who's going to be the first 2. But yeah, it's a cliche to call Michael Taft a very smart football player, but the fact of the matter is Michael Taft is a very smart football player. Makuba has a lot of snap too. He's picking up the defense really well. Derek Williams really impressed me last year, being able to play as a true freshman despite not being an early enrollee. So I don't think they're lacking for brain power back there. They're not lacking for athleticism. Taft is perfectly in the middle of an average safety athlete. Probably his quickness is probably a little bit better than most. Makuba's got tons of range. Derek Williams is a freak. Jelani McDonald is a freak. So they got to get McDonald up to speed. But I think safety is going to be improved. As far as rotation, I'm glad that he's asking about Barron. We saw Barron playing corner the other day, which wasn't a surprise. Ian just wrote a post about Jalen Gilbo this morning. I've yet to read it. I bet it's really good. If Gilbo can really man the star, and then you could put Barron at boundary safety and Malik Muhammad at field corner, that secondary starts to look a lot even more enticing than it already does. And there's, they've got young depth there too, man. They might be tough to keep Kobe Black off the field. The way I'm hearing about him practicing, he looks like he's going to be ready to play as a true freshman if they need him. So tons of bodies, tons of depth. Gavin Holmes looks extremely athletic and comfortable as a blanket cover man. Still not sure how he's going to do on the metal side. He's switching between playing off and playing man and, zone. There's maybe some questions there, but they've got the bodies, man. It's a lot better situation than last year. They did a really good job retooling it in just one off season.
For you, Ian, do you see rotation? I mean, is there anything you'd like to add?
I just think where Barron ends up is one of the most interesting questions of the fall camp. I'm curious if we'll know, or if we're just going to have to kind of wait and see exactly what they have. I really like the idea of just playing Barron as the starting boundary corner, like Eric was saying, starting Gilbo, and then having Barron, Gilbo, and Muhammad on the field together. Sounds like the best coverage unit Texas has had since Holton Hill and Chris Boyd, probably. That seems like a big win. Obviously, we've been wanting to see fun sub packages for years as well. So that would also be great if they just play them at the same time in some kind of dime sub package. But we won't know for sure for a while. And the staff has every incentive not to give it away between, not wanting to give the opponents clarity on what they're going to do, plus keeping everybody engaged and not letting all these talented cornerbacks know that the best player on the team is going to move to their position. There's not a lot of incentive to make that obvious. So
this, I think, and we're talking about Taft here, this seems to be a very, let's be honest, minor sentiment here, but let's talk about Taft just for a second in terms of athletic ability. I think his athletic ability gets really underrated in that position. Obviously, he's got it between the ears and able to get to the right place at the right time. But can you speak a little bit to his athletic ability? I mean, let's be honest here, guys. He's playing for the University of Texas. I mean, it's not as if this guy's a complete schlub. We'll go to you on this, Eric.
Yeah, I would bet that his short shuttle is really good. Maybe not the long speed or 40 yards isn't necessarily long, but it's pretty long. Maybe the long speed isn't quite there where, some other guys are, Makuba and Williams, but a lot of it is matching your mind and your feet, syncing your whole, everything about the position together. It's not just about being a freak athlete. It's nice when they're freak athletes. You want them having the closing ability and range of Earl Thomas. But it's a heady position if you can play smart. And he's obviously smart. He made one of the most athletic plays I saw last year, coming across the entire formation to make a tackle against Baylor. Maybe I'll retweet that after this video. I haven't seen many safeties make that play at all in college football, much less at Texas in recent years. I don't think athleticism is really the detriment. I would like him to weigh a little bit more. I think if he brought a little bit more thump, I don't know if that guy's going to play in Canada, arena, whatever. I don't think he's going to be done playing football when his days at Texas are up.
Let's move over to the go ahead, Ian, please.
Blake Gideon has said the NFL is loaded with 4.8 safeties that play fast because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Blake Gideon would say that, right? But
right.
But it doesn't mean it's not true. And just to Eric's point, we could make it like a whole cut up of like 4 minutes long of Taft making plays last year that a slow white guy would hypothetically not be able to make. Like some of the tackles he was able to make, how reliable he is, not only getting to ball carriers that in an open field, but getting them down is pretty underrated. He made one, I think, on Matthew Golden on a kickoff coverage against Houston. It may not look like much, but the fact that he even got to him and got him down was pretty impressive. So
he throws his whole body in those tackles. It's kind of funny. He's wrapping his arms, his legs, anything he can. That guy is a determined football player, man. I have a soft spot in my heart for guys like that maximize. Back to Sanif's point here, you can do both, man. You play the guys that deserve it, and while you're continuing to develop everybody else. At some point, Derek Williams is going to be he's going to have sort of that football smarts that I think Taft already has, and he's going to be phenomenal. Probably drafted in the second round or something. But they've got to earn it, and he's still going to play a lot. All three of those guys are going to play. My problem with the rotation is it's you got to have cohesion in the secondary, and the more you rotate, the harder it would seem for that to accomplish that. But I like the idea of having one of Taft and Makuva with McDonald and Williams, sort of being a steadying force back there, but also still having one of those really high end athletic guys on the field. I'm just not too worried about safety this year.
Well, let's move on to linebacker then. This will be a question for you, Ian. In the rotation, I think our starters have been made pretty clear up to this point. Who do you see as the third and fourth linebacker in the rotation, specifically when we're in a nickel? Is that Blackwell for you? Is it Gouye? Who is that?
Is that how you say it, Gouye?
Probably not.
Gillette.
Yep.
He's from Texas.
Robert Goulet.
Yeah, like Robert Goulet. That's his name, right?
Oh my God, you theater dorks. Oh my Lord.
Jeez. Hey, look, he is like a legendary actor. That was a compliment I was just giving that kid.
Oh my
Lord. It sounds like it's gonna go. Hill's the starter at Mike. Benda is the starter at Will. When Hill comes out, Benda slides to Mike, and Blackwell, I think, is the first guy off the bench at Will. So I think between those three, they're going to get most of it.
You're forgetting about Leonga Lafau. I think Leonga is going to back up Hill at Mike.
Well, if he does, it'll be because he had a good camp, I guess. But I would think he'd be ahead of Robert Goulet.
Yeah. Blackwell's. Leonga's ahead of Gillette. Gillette is mainly focusing on Sam, based on what I hear, which of course is going to be Trey Moore's spot. But I think Leonga Lafau is going to play this year. We'll learn more about it over the next couple of weeks. But the expectation has always been that he's going to play this season.
With that in mind, and I know this was discussed earlier on the board, and for some reason, Justin pointed this out. It's been a little bit cagey from the coaching staff as to who's going to have the football comms. But if we had to speculate, where do you see this going down? Who do you think are the three defensive players that might have the helmet comms in the system? Now, it's my understanding you can only have one on the field at a time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So who do you see having those?
Hill.
All the way?
I think it's you want it to be your Mike, and then it's also he's playing Mike for the first time. I think it's a huge benefit for him to get him playing a little faster, maybe not having to think quite as much. I think it'll be Hill. The addition of Derek Williams is interesting because, you know, if he's got a helmet, what would that say? So he couldn't have it on the field at the same time as Hill. So yeah, that doesn't make sense. It's going to be Hill. It's got to be Hill.
Let's just take a hypothetical here, Ian. Obviously, what would be the argument for having it in somebody in the secondary, maybe a safety? Why would you put them in the helmet or helmet comms?
I guess if you needed to communicate more with your secondary, then you needed to communicate with your front. Eric's point is actually something I hadn't thought about, which is if they gave Nansen the headset, then he could be in Hill's ear the entire game, telling him, like, you know, giving him all the things that a veteran linebacker would already know. Like, watch the tight end, and when he's here, look for this. Make sure you look for this. Tell Broughton to get his butt down and get lower next snap. You know, whatever it is. I think they probably don't need to communicate as much with the secondary because they have Taft, they have Makuba, and they've already been emphasizing communication with those guys every year since they've been on campus because it's so essential.
Do we know, are there any restrictions as to which coaches or how many coaches can be in the ear of these players? Obviously, you don't want them all speaking at once, but can Nansen chip in there, or is it all PK, or does it have to be decided? What are the rules on that?
I think they could have a chorus in his ear, I think, if they wanted. I haven't seen any rules that would say otherwise.
Well,
I'm not sure on that one.
That would arguably really benefit Hill in the development of his game if he could have Nansen in his ear, certainly giving him an opportunity to look for some specific things. All right, guys.
I assume that they're not getting the general coaches headsets,
right?
And that they actually flip it to the player, and then I don't know if one guy flips it to the player, or if for like a minute the player can hear the entire conversation. If the player can hear the entire conversation, I think the coaches may have to make some adjustments.
Right. I don't know if you've seen the I don't know. I think it was maybe Sean McVay. I can't remember who it was, but somebody was calling in a play, and literally the quarterback just couldn't, for the life of him, get the coach to shut up. I mean, it was literally going on and on and on and on. So yeah, I think concision is going to be key to all of that. So let's give our folks here a little bit of a preview of what the next week is going to look like. I know we hit on it a little bit. So we do have a walkthrough today, a practice tonight. Tomorrow is off. And then what's the rest of the week looking like for us, Eric?
Yeah, when you say tomorrow's off, I don't even really think it's a real off day. They just don't have practice. I still think they go in and have meetings and, you know, do treatment and stuff like that. I believe it's practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then another day off. I have to get that checked again. But yeah, we'll have an update after each practice. That's the goal, anyways. You can't always get people on when you need to, but typically we can. And so when I get a guy on the phone on Monday, I'll find out the rest of the schedule. What do we have? We have it a Monday Night Live, right? Or are we doing that in the morning?
We can move it to the evening if that makes it easier for folks.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably have team notes for Monday Night Live obviously I couldn't have it in the morning because I'll be practicing then.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and make a program announcement that we're going to be moving Monday Night Live to it'll be in the evening. So Go ahead and check that out. That'll give you the opportunity to give you some direct contact with the boys that were at practice and some insight on that moving forward. I know this is a big Saturday on a personal level. Ian has basically every episode of Bluey to get through, and Eric is celebrating both his dad and stepdad's birthdays. So, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. Again, as we discussed before the show, your mother has a very specific type, and it has to do with this date. All right, guys, we thank you so much for checking in. This is a short one. We've got the season coming up, and we look forward to talking to you. We're going to move all our question and answer section to Monday evening. So if you have any questions following that Monday practice, go ahead and hit us up. Otherwise, have a great Saturday.